Hey, bring Dad into this one. We hadn't Dad in a while on the intro.
Hi, this is Ron Stanfield. I want to welcome you to the Big Honker podcast.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker podcast brought to you by Looking Glass Duck Club. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver.
That's right.
And with
on fire today.
On fire, back in the deal. You know, you was on fire last Sunday, and by Tuesday,
What'd you do?
I didn't do shit.
You did something.
I heard a squelch. By Wednesday, you were already second-guessing yourself. Today, we had some wind. You had a good hunt. The other two boys struggled today, though, so it's kind of crazy. But the birds are just not – we're not getting the same patterning out of the birds every day.
Well, it's cloudy and rainy and foggy every day.
For the sixth day in a row.
So they don't know where they are
They're
in
just
this country.
Different all day. With us today from the big city of Dallas, Texas, through Lubbock, Texas, through Holiday, Texas, Mr. Logan Schlegel.
Schlegel.
Damn it.
You're close.
That was close that time. I was closer than your name. I was going to call you Justin a minute ago.
Throw them together and you'll get it eventually.
Yeah, you look like a Justin. So now you are a.
You hated it when subs came to school. You knew they were just going to butcher that last name.
Well,
they did it with mine.
We knew all the subs.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you go to high school with 75 kids in your class.
Well,
And
that's
you're the
true,
third
too.
child. They just know you.
Yeah. I always got Shaver. I'm like, damn it. And then all my friends would be like, oh. No, that's not funny. Let them butcher your name. You got an easy last name.
So you grew up in Holiday, Texas, which is a suburb of Wichita Falls.
Yes.
And then you went to Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. I'm the smartest guy in the room today. There's 2 tech graduates here. So a Midwestern State University flunky is a little higher up the chain there.
You are under us now. Just remember that.
I don't know how you figure that. When I went there, we were also the Indians, not the Mustangs.
Texas Tech is part of, or MSU, part of Texas Tech now, right?
Yeah.
Like the medical program?
No, their whole system. So we took all of MSU and put it under the Tech system.
Did you see where the basketball player that left Tech, that everybody was talking about, Chris Beard, choked somebody last night and got arrested on domestic violence at 3 a.m.?
I didn't
That was
see
our
that.
head
Did
coach.
you see that? Yeah, now he's at Texas and got arrested last night.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's what going down to the big city of Austin will do to you. You just turn to a dickhead. Did you see there was a guy that recently won an election, and somehow a video just came out of him like whipping his girlfriend?
What'd she do?
I don't know.
doesn't matter.
Took his belt off and then just went to town on her.
So it wasn't like an SMN deal, or
No. You could tell she was not.
she wasn't enjoying this. There wasn't no Oklahoma
He
safe word.
he reared back and was just.
No shit.
It was in a high rise. I don't know how the people thought to video it. Maybe
Instead of doing something, that's what wears me out. You know, let's just let's
No,
videotape
they were
her
in
get
a
the shit
high.
beat out of
They
her.
were in a high rise.
Oh, so they were voyeurs.
Yeah, they were like down below. You could tell they were down below. I'll pull it up.
There's some sick puppies in the world. Let's talk about something I want to talk about right now. Brittany Griner. Okay. Now, Logan, you're a preacher man, though, right? Are you an ordained minister?
I'm not ordained yet.
What exactly does ordained mean?
Your ordination essentially is just your denomination going, it's okay for you to be in a pulpit and officially minister and preach to our congregations.
Do you judge people?
Not
Like
particularly.
different congregations.
Like
the
within
Baptists.
Like if you get ordained in the Southern Baptist Convention, you can basically go to any Baptist church.
What about so is that what you're doing? Like explain that. So you're going to seminary school, but it's for the Baptist church?
No, so my seminary is technically a non-denom. I have to caveat that, otherwise they'd be a little pissed. But it's Presbyterian, so it's part of the PCA, which is a smaller sect of Presbyterians in the United States that are incredibly. They were the conservative ones that stayed right with social issues, and I think they followed the Bible a bit better.
So you're not marrying Bill and Bob at your church?
I'm not.
See, I'm a Methodist, and we're going through our split. It's been weird. So like we are the. It was First United Methodist Church. We are now the
global. Is it GUMC global.
Yes, global. Yes. So they're supposed to be more in line with the teachings of the Bible and not marrying Adam and Steve.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question now.
Okay, hold on. It's a Michigan. This video contains.
Will people on YouTube be able to see this?
I don't know. It happened this summer.
Looks like they're having sex or something there.
Nope, not sex. She has on go-aheads. Here comes the belt. He's pissed. He's pissed at her. Jason Kolkema?
Well, what they ought to do is drag his ass up and beat his ass, and he won't do that shit anymore.
Do you think...
it's hitting a chair. It's a hell of a chair. Got legs and feet on it.
I wonder if I can...
I don't care if he gets kicked off his deal. Someone to beat his ass is what they ought to do.
I can just dangle him outside that window.
Yeah, I mean, I have no use for that. I mean, I have been really, really, really mad at my wife over times. I've never touched her like that. Never, ever, ever. You know, I just can't imagine I don't get it.
No.
I understand spanking your children. That's about discipline. You're not supposed to spank your kids because you're hurt emotionally. You're spanking kids to teach them right or wrong. It's supposed to be a positive enforcement, or I guess would you call it a positive reinforcement? Is that what it would be? But that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to spank your child to educate them. Don't do that again. And this is the repercussions. If you do something, if you take a video game to school and your dad tells you not to when you're in 6th grade, he should beat your ass, because that happened to me. I'm at 7th grade. I remember that's my last spanking. I didn't take a game to school no more. I learned my lesson. But that guy right there, that was just a violent. They need to beat his ass.
And you just think about how common that is across the U.S. Even
just blows my mind. I saw. I was watching Cops one time, and this guy was beat up another guy, and the cop goes, why are y'all fighting? No, the cops are arresting a guy. That's what they're putting cuffs on. This guy comes out of the blue and just pops the guy right in the mouth. And the cop goes, why would you hit someone with us standing here putting cuffs? He hit my sister. And I thought, hell yeah. He goes, ain't nobody hit my sister unless they're married to him. What the hell? Just because you're married to him, you shouldn't be able to do that either. But it was just like, that was his answer though. He hit my sister, and I thought, hell, good for you. Then I'd do the same damn thing. And then when he said that, I just lost all, well, if you're married to her, it's okay. You can beat the shit out of her then.
Well, I mean, she's your property then.
Well, that's the way they look at it.
Right?
That's the Bible says.
That's what the Bible says, right?
Does it or doesn't it?
Not to my knowledge. Is there an explicit women become your property?
What does it say about them?
It's Adam, the man will leave his mother and father and he'll cleave to his wife, and the two will become one. And
she will obey thy husband.
And she will, but she is still a human, so you also can't denigrate that within herself.
Does it say that? Or does it just say she'll obey thy husband?
That's applying the biblical ethic into the marriage.
We're applying is not what it says, though. It doesn't say that, does it?
It's not the Bible doesn't say apply the biblical ethic anywhere, but we've come to that realization that it's probably a good thing if we do that, because it's where you get disappointing your kids from is Proverbs.
See, that's the problem with the Bible. And Andy just looked at me like I said something wrong.
I didn't look at you like that.
Yeah, he did. But everything's a translation. So everybody translates it different.
Well, it's just like there's plenty of verses in the Bible that tell you how to be a better slave owner and how to be a good slave. So like those are the things that trip me up, because to me, slavery is one of the worst things. It is probably the worst things that a human can do to another human.
Other than rape. Right.
Well,
there.
even there's like good rape and bad rape, isn't there in the Bible?
Huh?
Not.
Yeah, you're legal.
You can do what you want with a woman.
Huh?
You're
on your own here.
We'll get back to that.
We'll have to circle.
We'll circle back to that. But it doesn't say anything in the Bible that we should not have slaves. But that was part of the time. So that when I see scriptures like that, I'm like, okay, this is obviously a piece of text Slavery was okay in those days. Matter of fact, it was common and sought after. Like, more slaves you had, the better you were, more prosperous you were going to be. Stuff like that is obviously written in those times, not by this transient being who has this greater knowledge of what's good and bad. Because if a text like that came from God, he should know, like, no, slavery, we should not have slaves, right?
Right. But so yes, there's a lot to unpack in that, because God in the Levitical law, so going back Old Testament to the Jews on whenever they're wandering in the wilderness before they get into Israel, God gives them slavery laws too about how to treat their slaves and servants. But the way that God sets it forth is in Jewish custom. You would have the year of Jubilee. And so every 7 years, you no longer you're no longer a slave. You get everything you had back, and if your owner is able to give you more than that back.
So they were only slaves for 7 years. So they were like an indentured servant was.
Yes, and that's also culturally for us. We think of American, Western, European slavery because that's what we grew up like learning about. But you go back to their cultures, it was common for them to not be like chattel slavery like we had, but someone would go out and go, this is a better way for me to be able to provide and have somewhat of a lifestyle instead of living on the streets per se. And that's like not a blanket. You can't blanket it, because that's impossible to blanket everything under there. But it was much more common for slaves to be almost seek them out, or whenever you're conquering people, you get into the Greco-Roman times, you're conquered, you become a slave.
Right.
And then, okay, now you're Greco-Roman. They don't have to uphold the Israeli law that God gave them.
The Native Americans, Indians, or whatever you want to call them, they had slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody did.
That's right. Yes. They enslaved people all the time.
I saw something the other day. Slave comes from Slav. Well, the Slavics were a bunch of white people that just got conquered by the powers that be at the time. It was normal. You'd go into a village, you'd rape and pillage it, and then whoever was left, the able-bodied men, they'd be your slaves for the rest of their life.
But they had Christianity in Europe. The Indians over here hadn't been introduced to Christianity at that time, but they still had slaves. So they didn't have the Christian rule for slavery, whatever that is, a 7-year. So you're telling
that was the Old Testament law is you essentially build up to the year of Jubilee to lose your servants per se, and like they can come back, they could be your servants again if necessary, but they get their property, get all their belongings back.
So one thing I don't understand is why do we, if you read something in the Old Testament and then you say it and they're like, well, that's Old Testament, we don't believe that anymore. Why are we reading about it? Why do we need to look at it then? That seems silly to me. If it's going to be attached to the New Testament and then you read it and then you see like this really harsh statement or scripture, and then you tell somebody about it and they're like, well, that was Old Testament. Jesus came and now like we don't go by that anymore. Why are we even looking at it?
Well, then why do we look at history at all then if we're just going to disyoke that? Yeah, you have to understand how we got to where we are through the whole, because, you take the whole narrative of the Bible is human existence up till the death and resurrection of Jesus and the life of the apostles. And so we have to understand how they got to where they are, and it's God's giving that us as a framework so we can understand who he is better. And so whenever we get into the New Testament and the law is fulfilled in Christ and we are given Christian liberty, more so we have a little bit more freedom of conscience and we don't have to follow up the rigid structures that they do. We still have to understand why they had those things.
Like if your mom dresses with 2 threads or something, you gotta disown her or beat
so
her.
If you're wearing more than just one
Explain
type of
this.
material.
Yes.
Explain this.
If you wear if you wear a garment that's got 2 threads, if your mother does, what are you supposed to do to her? It's not pretty.
Not off the top of my head, but it's
what is something with more than 2 threads?
Like polyester and cotton. Well, like back then it would be like, obviously they didn't have polyester, but
it's like don't mix your linens basically.
Yes. Right. You'd have to.
And that was
same material. So that was what the Jews had to do in order to maintain their holy standing, their right standing before God, is to be obedient to everything that he put forth in the law.
So they weren't allowed to wear cotton and silk.
Right.
Right. It was in Leviticus.
Why is that a big deal, I wonder?
Jeff, we got it. I don't know.
Part of the, so not explicitly, I'm not entirely sure, but throughout history, we've taken it as, because the gospel is that we get Christ's righteousness, and he dies in our stead, right? And so for them, they're looking ahead to Christ's eventual coming as the anointed Messiah. And so, but they don't have the holiness. They couldn't have that holiness and so they're supposed to be set apart. And that's how they're essentially replicating and imitating God, is by upholding all of these commandments that he's given forth, is how they're considered holy within that Jewish kind of traditional way.
I just don't understand the different clause.
Keep my decrees. Do not make different kinds of animals. Do not plant your fields with 2 different kinds of seed. Do not wear clothes woven of 2 different kinds of material. So
That's crazy.
too bad. We would have never had the Labrador Retriever if we would have held up to this.
Do you think we'll have a newest testament?
No,
I'm
revise
serious.
it, revise
We're
it.
talking about as history goes on and people change and evolve. We went from the old to the new. Are we going to have a newer?
No, I think the newer would
that's
just
past.
occur in the age to come, whenever Christ comes back and establishes his full kingdom, and it's the believers, and people that weren't believers are now in judgment.
So that would be when we'd have a newer, if we ever have one.
That would be whenever we're a new creation and everything is finally consummated at the end of, essentially, our end of comprehension of time.
What do you believe happens when you die?
I believe that if you're saved, you are caught up and you go into this state where you're dwelling with God in almost the fullest. It's kind of like an intermediary state, but it's not Catholic like purgatory. It's blissful. You're with the Lord.
Do you think it's automatic?
Yes.
Like if you died right this second, you're in heaven the next second.
Yes, I think your spirit goes up immediately.
And you go to heaven. And do you think? Okay, I'm gonna ask some tough questions. And
I'll
I know
try
you
my
don't have.
best.
I know you don't have all the answers. Just because you went to school does not mean you're. I don't think nobody can answer these questions, but I'm asking anyways. Do you think when you die, do you know your family as your family, or are they just other people that are in heaven?
I couldn't give you there is no kind of mention per se, but the way that I view it is, I think that we will. Because I think the family unit is a good that God has ordained and cares deeply for, and has cared deeply for throughout history. And so I think we'd be able to recognize each other. And that's just my own personal.
I mean, I would hope so. To me, it would be depressing to know that all my loved ones that have gone on before me, there's going to be there, and there's going to be some other Christian walking around. But I would hope that you would be able to, because people are like, the strongest person I know is someone that's lost a child, that still goes through and goes to work every day and lives a good life. There's not a stronger person in the world than someone that's lost their kid. And it just would break my heart to think that those people think when they get to heaven, they're going to have that bond with their child again they haven't seen. And it would be sad. It's just another kid and you wouldn't know it. My second question is, if what you say is true, what happens to someone that has multiple spouses that loved them and they died? I mean,
A widow.
Yeah, a widow. I mean, does she have 3 husbands when she gets up there, or does she have?
No, because I think whenever we enter into heaven, we will neither be married nor given unto marriage. And so I don't think that those would be a thing anymore. And that's whenever Jesus was teaching in one of the Gospels, and some Pharisees, someone came up to him and gave him this scenario where this woman was married, husband died, and their culture is brothers got to take it on and bear children, and goes through 3 or 4 other brothers, and then he just goes like, it doesn't matter because they're dead. And so you're released from from death do us part is the end of the covenant of marriage in a marriage ceremony, right? And so you're no longer under that covenant once you've died and entered upon heaven. And so will you be able to recognize that your old spouse? I think so, but I don't think it'll be like your marriage family unit traditionally, kind of like we think about it.
Who's Michelle going to gripe at when we get to heaven?
She can go straight to Jesus then.
She can go right to the
That
source.
poor guy, he's going to get it from everybody then. Let's circle back. to your rape comment.
Okay, Deuteronomy 22:28-29. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed and seizes her and lies with her, and they are found, then the man who lay with her shall give her father of the young woman 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has violated her. He may not divorce her for all of his days.
Well, first of all, I don't even know what betroth meant or whatever.
I think it means what you
Betrothed.
think it means.
Go
Betrothed?
Yes, that's what that would be. Is
go ahead and
right,
explain it.
they're going to get engaged. They're engaged.
So
If she's a virgin and he
he
takes...
rapes her.
Yes.
So is that a good rape?
Well, he just got a wife out of the deal as long as he has 50 shekels to give to the father.
But that still doesn't mean it's not rape. You said there's good rape and bad rape. I'm waiting for you to explain to all these people.
He
what
just
good
got a
rape-
wife
He paid-
for 50 shekels.
So for 50
He
shekels,
didn't even
you
have to
can-
give up a goat.
So 50 shekels, you can rape somebody and it's okay.
In Deuteronomy,
I think that you're overlooking the woman's point of view on this.
what's the Romans' point of view?
The woman,
Oh. Well, Jeff,
she's getting raped,
did
and her
we
dad's
really,
getting 50 shekels.
did we really care about women back then?
We're talking about today. I'm not talking about back then. We're not then. You said good rape and bad rape. Well, I
I don't
understand
know
you
what
pointed at the
I-
computer. I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know what you're wanting from me here.
I don't understand. You said good rape. I didn't. I'm explaining that's not a good rape. That's a rape.
That's a rape.
So what's a good rape, though? You said.
Well, he didn't get stoned to death.
He
It
keeps
seems
pointing
like
at that computer like, I don't know who the computer is. You're
I'm-
reading it.
I'm giving you. These are not my words. I didn't write this.
You said good
understand?
rape. You said good rape. I don't think there's such thing as a good rape.
I don't either.
You said a minute ago there was good rape and bad rape.
There's rape that you can get away with.
Okay, that's different than a good rape.
You're arguing semantics with me. You're
that's
you're
not
arguing
semantics.
you're
No.
arguing an adjective.
No,
There is a rape in the Bible that you can get away with. How about that?
that sounds better than good rape, though.
Well, you put me on the spot, and I didn't know any other way to like. Okay, I'm not going to lose my
That's a
head.
good murder.
I'm not going to. Well, I mean, you got a good slave owner and a good slave. So, I mean, what do you want me to? These are
No.
not my words right here.
There were some good slave owners. There were some people that treated their slaves very well, and they took care of them. But it was so. But good rape, I don't think there's a way that you can have a good rape.
No, you can't frame
Well,
it.
there
as
is
as
a
good
rape in the Bible that you will not lose your head for, and you will get a wife for 50 shekels.
Okay, so it wasn't illegal what he did, but morally it was wrong. Yes, I think it was morally wrong. You
Was
don't
it?
have to. What do you think? Morally wrong?
I
was
think it's
definitely
morally
morally
wrong,
wrong.
100%.
Okay.
But we're okay with it.
No, we're not. You're okay with the 50 shekels.
No.
Yeah.
50 shekels seems like a bargain. How much is 50 shekels back then?
I don't. It doesn't matter. It's so today, if you have a daughter and she's 16,
She has to marry that guy.
and some guy offers you $50,000
Sure.
and he raped her
After raping her.
after raping her, then you're okay with that?
I guess I'd have to be.
Huh?
It says it right there that I'd have to be
don't know what-
okay with it.
That computer's got a whole lot of wisdom, I guess, going on because I don't think so.
I don't think that it says you have to be okay with it.
You just gotta give your daughter over.
you just gotta
to the
do
raper.
it. Yeah.
Sadly, even
It doesn't make it better. It's still an atrocity, but you don't have to be okay with it. But it is what we're commanded to do because now they're in the marriage bond, right? And so it's like there is still a technical good that comes out of it by now being covenantally joined in marriage, but that doesn't mean that the starting point was good or
That's
it was
it, but-
morally good.
But what if he
even in-
continues to rape her? Like, what if she never wants sex without this marriage, but he's like, no, I paid for you. Like, we're having coitus. Like, is it continual rape even though she's now wed to this guy?
I still think rape would still be classified as rape in that
Forcing
instance,
himself upon her.
even under
Marriage.
even whenever they're married.
So even if she's say she's 18, just because like that's she's legal in our definition of things, the way that we have defined things in America. I mean, if she's not into that marriage, like it would always be him forcing himself upon her.
Mm-hmm.
So like those are the kind of things when I said good rape, it's rape that you can get by with. I should have phrased it better.
You still aren't phrasing it right.
What do
I
you
don't
mean?
think there's a good way to.
No, I
phrase
don't think there
that.
is. I think you should just
Well, no, it's
say
an
it's a rape.
icky, it's a icky topic, but it's something that's there.
Well-
I mean, what do you want me to do? You want me to just gloss over it?
Well, no, you're the one that used the term good. Nobody else did. It was still rape. But let's talk
Legal.
about this. Let's talk about this. In today's society, and a lot of Muslim families.
That's the way it is.
A woman is no more than a pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Women are looked that way and shunned in their society. That's what drives me crazy about the Democratic Party and these minorities. Oh, the you're pushing for this Muslim religion that believes in a lot of this shit. The honor killings that happens in Saudi Arabia, I believe. They have these. They basically they sell their daughters, don't they? A lot of cultures look down on their daughter. They don't look at them as an asset, other than getting paid what's it called?
50 shekels.
You get a dowry.
A dowry.
Yes.
Yeah, they want the dowry. You know, she's worth $100,000. She has big breasts and pretty eyes, so that's what I want from her. And some guy pays her, and then he owns her, and he does what he wants with her, and he has 3 or 4 or 5 wives. So that's just we shun it because it's not part of our culture or society, and we look down on it. There's still countries out there that believe in that.
Yes, there are, and it is the dignity of the woman is like, yes, they were seen as lesser for a lot of human history until really Christianity kind of turned things around, because it's okay. Christians are now growing in Rome. They're getting murdered and hung on crosses to adorn the roadways for people coming in. But now women are being treated as somewhat as equals. They get equal say per se, and in these instances, they have equal access to God. We're also walking around on the streets because in Roman society, you could just if you didn't want your baby, you just threw it out on the road and let the dogs eat it. Well, Christians were known to go alongside and pick up that child and raise it as one of their own. And so the dignity of human life doesn't really exist outside of the Judeo-Christian worldview.
And it still hadn't caught up. I mean, even today.
No, and we're going backwards, I think, like with the Democratic Party, it's not a party of progressive, we're going to make you feel better. It's a party of we're going to make you be denigrated, but we're going to tell you that you're supposed to enjoy it.
Yeah, everything they preach is exactly what their leaders, what they preach against is what their leaders are doing. I mean, you can talk about Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is a grade A, vile human being, I believe. Really do. I believe he really is. And he was the spokesleader, and his wife's the same way. Terrible people. But everything they preach about is the stuff exactly what they do, and now we're finding out more and more about this pedophilia, and I don't have a problem. I mean, I have a problem, I guess.
Oh boy.
Here we go. I'm ready to step my foot off in this. You got a 17-year-old girl that's stripping in Los Angeles bar, and she tells everybody she's 19 or 20. She's got a fake ID, and she strips. And some 25-year-old guy or 35-year-old, 45-year-old guy takes her home and stuff. And he's going to be a sex traffic guy if he gets arrested for the rest of his life. He didn't even know how she looked like she's 19, 20. That's different. Or a kid that's 18 years old that has sex with a 16-year-old girl that's in school with him has sex. That's different than these fuckers. They're prying on these 6, 8, and 10-year-old girls. And there's so much.
That's good pedophilia.
No, not at all. I didn't say it was good. I said there's a different deal.
Different pedophilia.
But they're
bonded together.
No,
but I mean, let's
they're in
think
the
about
same group. If you have a registered sex offender, you're considered
under
the same,
under the guise of the law.
Yes,
Under
and there's
the
a
law.
big difference. And I've seen this. I've had to sign some papers on some stuff. And when you have a kid that's 18 years old in high school and he has sex with a 16-year-old girl, he can still be considered a child and have to register as sex offender the rest of his life.
Because he pissed off the parents and they found out about it and
but then
hammer him.
But then you take some grown-ass man with a 7-year-old girl and they're both registered sex offenders. And there's 2 completely different ends to this shit.
Right.
And all this shit in Hollywood that these sick fuckers do, and it just blows my mind that we walk around without shooting them.
Let me ask you this, and that's a good point. Do you think that when the New Testament came along that Christianity lost its teeth? In that we now have to, I feel like the New Testament has been used against us in a lot of circumstances. We have to be this loving and forgiving and accepting person, even though like I don't necessarily agree with what people are doing. Does that make sense? Whereas like in the Old Testament, it's kind of cut and dry. Like you do this is what happens. But when the New Testament came along, now all of a sudden I have to be accepting I can't judge anybody that does despicable behavior. Does that make sense?
Yes. And we don't judge them because they're already under their own condemnation for their souls. And so I will say that our objective is to spread the gospel and go forth and make disciples, right? And by doing that, that doesn't mean be accepting. It means telling them that they're wrong. I don't think I don't think the New Testament church were the ones that lost our teeth per se. I think it's more modern. Really, I think it's kind of post-Reformation is now not everybody's Catholic in Western society, because this is where all this is occurring, is just the Western world, right? And we've progressed and we've quote unquote progressed and gone on in technology and all these things. And then you get, late 1800s, 1900s, you get Nietzsche coming in, God's dead now, right? And so why do we follow these things that are under God's laws according to these Christians? And instead of continuing forth, I think Christianity has taken steps backwards because we've been on our heels to not go forth and spread the gospel, because everything's been quote unquote Christian law or Christian X, right? And so we've lost our ability to understand how to live in the world, but not necessarily be of it per se in that regard. And we've raised generations upon generations of people that can't stand up for their ideals because they don't know. They're not taught what it means to really be a Christian, to understand the law of God and what it means to be saved by grace through the gospel of Jesus Christ on the cross. And if we did that, we would go to these people and go like, this is wrong. This is explicitly why. Here's the gospel. Like, come into the family, because, the best way to kill an enemy is to turn him into your friend. And so that's what we're called to do, but we're never called to go like, that's acceptable. We're always to be working for the transformation and redemption of this entire world and whatever society we're in. But instead of doing that, we've turned into conclaves.
But how do we do that? Like, how would you go up to a homosexual couple and be like, listen, y'all are doing it wrong. Come with me. Like, that's not something that is realistic in my mind.
I don't think it's realistic for someone to just walk up to them and do that. However, I do think that there is a lot of power in a lot of transformative and redemptive power in going up to that gay couple and going, hey, could we just have a meal with you and talk about and get to know them, and then let them see your life be different from theirs because you are a Christian. And then you have this relationship established to go, hey, we think you're wrong. This is why. This is what we believe. And you point it out in the Bible. And at the same time, you have to go, and we don't know. And, by that time that a relationship is established, you probably know that they're probably a little messed up in the head.
But what if they're good people though? Like, what if they're loving to one another, and maybe have adopted a kid that had a crack addict for a mom, and they've taken a baby that was in a terrible situation. Like, I mean, I'm sure that there's plenty of scenarios where the only sin that a gay couple has is that they are loving a person of the same sex.
Right.
Like, what do you do? Like that's the one sticking point that you got on them.
Yeah, but I don't think it's just the one sticking point. Is if they're living in an open homosexual relationship, but they're still doing good things, morally, that still doesn't get at the root problem that they are sinners. But
we're all sinners, though.
Yes, and Christians are sinners that are given Christ's righteousness, where He's died in our stead, and so we get to go to heaven, and we get to be with Jesus and be with God in this communion through the Spirit, whereas they're outside of that. So long as they're practicing homosexuality is an immediate defiance to the Word of God and the natural order that the Lord has created. And some people aren't going to be, they're not going to convert. And that's, I hate it, but that's the way that life is.
So do you think that everybody that's homosexual is going to hell?
Everybody openly practicing, because I do have some friends that are homosexual or whatever, and then became believers, and they just don't practice, and they're not going to get married to a woman.
But they're not going to get they're done with homosexual activities, but they're not going to marry a woman.
But they're not going to marry a woman. And their plans are to remain celibate. And so I don't think so, because I think homosexuality is a sin that we've lopped in there into the mainstream because it's in the mainstream media for the U.S. right now. But I mean, I think you talk about any other sin is you talk about lying. You talk about what does it look like to not love your neighbor. I mean, lying, telling the truth, to honor your mother and father, to not put any idols before the Lord whatsoever. It's an incredibly hard path to walk as
For
a
everybody.
believer. Yes,
For
for
everybody.
everybody. But if you're a Christian, you have Christ's righteousness given to you, and because we can't do it, and so He did it for us, and we're seen under Him, whereas they're outside of it. Holistically and through this process of life, we become what's called sanctified, and so as you walk, you progressively look more like Jesus did.
So you think, in your opinion, is you've got an automatic free pass if you're a Christian, you're a heterosexual. So all other sins
You can be forgiven.
Can be forgiven, but if you're homosexual, you're bound for hell.
Well, I don't think you can be a homosexual Christian because it's an immediate antithesis. I mean, you read through a ton of the New Testament, you read through Romans, you read through 1st and 2nd Corinthians. I mean, it's a very much this abrasive, vitriolic speech against homosexuality being the peak of human depravity. And so if you now if you have this homosexual couple that are married, have this child, whatever, and you do convert them, I mean, I don't recognize that as a true marriage in general, just because the Bible dictates that a marriage is between a man and a woman. And so in my eyes, it's not a true marriage, and now they should separate. But now, and it's messy because they've got this kid involved, this hypothetical child, right?
Sure.
And so it's not that it's going to look easy, but they are on the path under salvation, unto God.
Could they live together and not engage in coitus? What if they were just like really good roommate? What if they're like, you know what, we need to go to heaven for this kid. Like, let's not engage in
That ain't happening.
intercourse. Well, you
I
know.
mean, let's be realistic here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also don't understand because a sin is a sin.
Mm-hmm.
So if I lie to my wife, I'm sinning.
Right.
Is that the same? Is that the same as being involved in a homosexual relationship, sin or lying to whoever?
Sinfully under the eyes of God, yes, but the repercussions while we're alive, no.
What does that mean?
And so, like, okay, you lie to your wife.
Well, not every day.
Well,
But I probably do every day about something.
How much did you spend on this? I've had that for years. I've had that for years.
That's her lying to me.
Right. I've had that for years.
you do it right, but as a believer, we're idyllically, thoughtfully becoming more Christ-like because we have that ability, right? Because we have the Holy Spirit inside of us, groaning on our behalf and Jesus interceding for us, versus this homosexual that doesn't have. I mean, they don't have those things, and it is clearly against the word of the Lord to do either of those things. I'm not saying that one is worse than the other within the realm of sin and what it does to the human soul, but if I'm just told that I'm a sinner and that I'm going to go burn in hell, and this is a very clear indication that I'm living antagonistically to God, then why would you want to continue on in doing that?
Right.
What about someone that's living with someone and not married to them? That's living in sin.
Yeah, that's still sin.
So is that the same as being gay?
In your end results, technically, yes.
You're depressing me because it sounds like I'm going to hell.
But that's the thing, though.
No.
Like it's difficult to. It's supposed to be difficult to get to heaven. Like in there one church. There's I know
Jehovah's Witnesses only think there's 1,147
right.
of them.
That's the
going in the whole
one.
world.
Like there's a very small number.
And they have a meeting when there'll be 80,000 people there. Well, I'm thinking, hey, bad news for you.
Yeah.
If only 1,100 of you are getting in there,
The numbers
it's not looking good.
The numbers don't look good for you.
And probably the guy talking on stage definitely is not one of the 1,100 people because, no offense, most preachers I think are frauds. I know I'm going to piss some people off, but when you get on a private jet, and my preacher Tex Cox, me and him have argued about this 1,000 times, I have a big problem with big churches. And I think if everybody would watch the Netflix special, The Amazing Gemstones, or on Amazon Prime, wherever it is, I think it's a great deal because I think it's definitely a show, but I really think a lot of the things that it talks about is what happens in big churches. I don't think there's anything more pure than a small town preacher because most of them are living in poverty and are having to work other jobs, and then they spend their time going to nursing homes, hospitals, doing funerals in churches. God bless them guys. But the guy who's living in the $1 million home in Dallas, that probably your head preacher where you work at, I have a harder time with those guys. And I don't know why I feel that way, because you should be able to make a good living. You're a very smart kid. You went to college. You've done this. You're going to become a preacher. You should be able to make a good living. Why should I judge you if you make $10 million a year?
You're not supposed to judge at all, Jeff.
I know that, but
So that's on you.
It is on me. But I have a hard time with a preacher that makes $10 million a year. To me, if everything you're preaching, you should be giving more of your stuff back.
But how much? Okay, so I think we talked about it with text. What's the line? What's too much for a preacher? What if the preacher does a really good job? What if he's worth $10 million? Should he not get $10 million?
You have very good points. I don't have an answer for you.
I mean, what if he's bringing all these homosexuals in and, converting them? Like $10 million, like whatever.
Our gay audience is not going to be happy today, and I don't know if we have a very big gay audience, but they're not.
But
gonna be happy
that's a joke, all right. You can take a dick, you can take a joke, all right. I mean, that's just a good little motto to go by. But seriously, what if this guy is bringing all of these people in and he's showing them the way?
Well,
Is he worth $10 million in? How many souls do you have to save before you say that Joel Osteen is worth $10 million? And I don't even know if he makes $10 million. We're just going to use him as an example.
if you take a pay cut, he probably is.
Yeah, I did see a preacher on TikTok, and he was like, yeah, somebody came at me and said, you're one of those evil millionaires. And he said, put multi in front of that before you address me.
Yeah.
So,
I don't understand. What's the black
You're not
guy's
a-
name?
you're not-
Creflo Dollar?
you're not
or-
answering my question.
I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. I don't know what souls he's saving. I don't know that he's not saving any souls.
Hey, I got hypothetical.
I have a problem people who do you know the story about the widow's mite? The widow's mite is a coin that they had in the Roman times. And I used to have a necklace with one on it, and I think someone's disappeared somehow from the house. But anyways, the widow's mite, the Romans would go around and collect taxes or tithes or whatever it was. I don't know what you would call it exactly. And they went to somebody's house and they said, "What are you giving?" And they gave.
That's a widow's mite.
Yep. And they gave 10. And the guy said, "You're only giving 10." And this guy was an accountant or something, had some money. He said, "Yes." He said, "The widow, she gave 2." He goes, "Well, yeah, I'm giving 10." He said, "Yeah, but all she had was 2. She gave everything she had to the church." And he gave 10. It's called a widow's mite. And I don't know where I was going with this story at, but anyways, I guess it really don't matter. I just don't understand people that have that kind of that they pry on people like this that old lady, and that's what bothers me.
But you don't know what that guy's giving either, though.
Okay,
You have no idea what
Joe-
that guy's tithes are.
no, but Joe.
What if he is giving away 70%? You're only supposed to give away 10 in the Bible, right? That was who was that?
See, you don't have any problem with any of these multi-million-dollar preachers that get. That,
I'm not saying
people-
I'm not saying that either. Joe.
okay, well, but let me ask you as a preacher guy, do you have a problem with them guys?
Yes, because I do think that most of them don't give like they should.
And it makes preachers look bad.
It does. Well,
Is 10% good enough? Like if I make 10 million a year, if I give away $1 million, that's what it says in the Bible. 10%.
Yeah, that's what Abraham did, and
That's in the Old Testament.
So
we don't go by that.
So
anymore,
Abraham's the
so-
standard we go
so
by.
it's one
I
of
do
the-
think that there is a sentiment where if you're comfortable in that and you're conscious and clear that you can give away 10% and that's acceptable. And some other people might be convicted and say, I need to give away 90% and only keep 10.
Sure.
Right. And that is also perfectly acceptable and
Right.
doesn't.
Yeah.
I think that's an individual judgment on that. And so long as your heart is proper with the Lord.
Do you have a better? I talked about this the other day with a guy, and I think, and this is just me, I have not read the Bible. I read books all the time, and I've tried to read the Bible, and I get past the first part, and it gets way.
How do you get through it? Like with all the names and the oughts and the is and all that stuff. Do you have like a don't take this wrong? Do you have like a dumbed down version, like a layman's term Bible that you can that's easier to read? No,
He went to
didn't.
preacher
No, I
school. He's
just-
got to know the ins and outs.
Yeah, but
You
that
want
old,
your doctor to know ins and outs of doctors.
no,
If
but
someone's saving my
that
soul,
old language is tough to read through.
I need a
The sentence
audio.
structure.
I need a Bible audio.
So how did you get through it?
I just sit down and I enjoy it and I think it's interesting because there's so much in there, just literarily because there's different styles of literature, there's different narratives. It's very encapsulating because God relates to us through stories in the Bible, right? And so it actually it'll capture your head.
Imagination.
And yes, all the names are important and they serve their purposes and they're clearly there for a reason. But I think there is a way to just sit and do it for the sake of reading it and taking it in versus sitting and going, I want to sit and meditate upon what this one little section says. And I think that goes with your translation. I mean, I like the NASB or the ESV. Pretty easy. NIV is a very easy read. Translation wise, you don't need to have the King James to be a real Christian.
See,
Have you seen this picture? You're talking about how deep it is. You've seen that picture before?
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
About how interconnected everything is.
So like that, the line on the bottom is, for the YouTube audience, the line on the bottom is a reference. And the longer the line, the more times it's referenced. So I'm assuming that this is laid out. That's Genesis there, and then Revelations is way over there.
Yes.
So all the lines, you can just trace the lines, and it's a cross-reference from Scripture to Scripture. I don't know what this one is, but it's referenced quite a bit.
it's hell.
Huh?
It's probably hell.
Something about it right in the middle.
I
mean, like, there's so many different ways that you could attack the Bible. Like, if you look at that, like, that you don't have to read it linearly from Genesis to Revelations, like, because it all works itself back and forth together. Is that the best way to read it, Genesis to Revelations?
I don't think there's a particularly best way to approach it. I think that is very much person to person dependent. I mean, I love the first Genesis, the books that everybody hates, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, because, Leviticus is right there in the middle, and that's just a bunch of law. But I like it because I'm a weirdo. But there are some people that it's an absolute trudge to get through there. And that's where the narrative stops, really, and it's a bunch of law and a bunch of rules and things that really don't necessarily apply to us anymore in actuality, but we still learn from it. And so, but you have to sit there and study and chew through it, and I'd rather just get through it sometimes. But there are other parts where you sit and, I think most new believers, my personal thing is I point them to go read Luke and then go read Acts, because it's the same scroll technically. It's just we bifurcated it out because of how it fits better for us to kind of understand how we set it up.
I need to, one of these days I'm going to read the Bible.
They have it to where it's a year.
Right.
1 year.
Yeah,
and you just read it a day.
Betty bought me one of those.
Oh, well, I don't know what to tell you,
And I got through 3 days. I've got to read the Bible. It's one of my goals in life is I'm going to read the whole Bible before I die. Maybe if I keep putting it off, I'll live longer. I don't know. But I want to, I like listening to stories. I like listening to preachers preach. I love that part of church. The sermon part, I really, really, really enjoy. I hate all the stuff that we do before we get to the sermon.
Fellowship.
I do not.
Hug your neighbor.
I hate that crap more than anything in the world. If I went to church with a bunch of lingerie models and stuff, I don't think I'd still like the hugging part. May enjoy it a little bit more though, but I'm just not into all the hugging, touching stuff. I do just not. People I don't talk to all week long. You don't see them all week. I don't want to hang out with them. But then I go to church. I got to act like they're my best friend. That wears me out, and I know that makes me very unchristian like. I love the sermon, but I hate all the fanfare before it. I do. It wears me out. I just want to go in and sit and get preached to.
Would you give 10% more to avoid that part?
Yes, I would.
You would. You'd
Yes,
give
I
20% of your income all of a
Yes.
sudden just to avoid the first 15 minutes.
Which
of church.
income are we talking about?
The one
Depends which income we're talking about.
the one that God knows about.
Yes, God knows. I think you're going to go. If you're a good person, in my heart, I believe this, because this is the way I am. I do a lot of good things I don't talk about. I do a lot of things. If I see somebody struggling, if I'm in a grocery line and somebody's having trouble, I'll buy groceries for them and stuff. That doesn't make me any better than anybody else, but that's from my heart. I really want to make people's lives better and that stuff. So I think God has got a tally mark, and it's like, oh, Jeff, he done 17 bad things, but he did 4 good things. I don't do it for the tally marks, but that's the way my heart is. I try to help people and be a good person. I do a lot of shitty stuff
That's
too.
Jeff trying to say that he cuts a lot of corners, so he's going to make up for it on the front end.
I do some things probably that God's probably.
Yeah, you're a degenerate gambler.
I know. Did you haven't gambled in a week or two?
Well, yeah, we gotta work this time of year.
Well,
how many times during the off season will you go to the casino
Once or
and
twice a
spend
week.
God's money?
God's money. How's it God's money?
It should go to the church.
Well, we could build a new church in town then some days. But I do things. If I see a homeless person, I do something for them. If I see
So
somebody,
that you can feel good when you go gamble.
No, it has nothing to do with that. That's just the way I am about things. I don't mind at all helping someone else. I think And there's a lot of people that I know, a lot of old rough old cruds that come through here a lot of times that would do anything to help someone. They need a veteran that needs help, a widow needs help. So they will do something. I could get on Facebook right now and go to our podcast page and say, listen, I need to raise $50,000 to help some people. And I could come, for a legit reason, and I could come up with that money in a day just because of good people I know that aren't your guys that are knocking down the doors of church, just good people that try to help people. I think God's got a place for those people. I really do. He don't want those people to go to hell. They're not bad people.
What does the Bible say?
The Bible does say that they will, if they don't have Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, they will go to hell.
But they
regardless of whether or not how many good things you do. Right?
Okay, I have Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I know Jesus died for my sins. I know that.
Then you're good.
But
no matter what he does.
See, that's the sticking point.
That's the sticking point is you then delve into it because it's faith without works is dead, but you're not working to get into heaven. It's because that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior and he's your number one and you love him and you want to be obedient to him, you do these things. And so that's how we
if I didn't have God in my heart, I'd have killed some bastards by now, probably in life.
It'd be terrible.
Yes.
But God, I know how people don't.
But I don't want to go. I know that I can't do that. But I also do other things I shouldn't do that's a sin. Everybody does.
Yes.
But yeah, Jesus died for my sins. I know that. I know exactly why and I know I'm going to go to heaven because of that. But I think that there's lots of people, there's lots of men and women just like me out there. I don't knock down the church all the time. My preacher would laugh. He's laughing right now because he's listening to this. He's like, no, Jeff, don't come to church. And maybe it's because he makes fun of me every time I go to church because he likes to point out I'm there. He's always got a story about me and Michelle every time I go to church. But I like that part of him, and I like the way that he does that. But there's so many people like me out there. I'm not going to go walk across the street to save your soul. So I'm not a good Christian. I'm just if you want to go to hell and you want to burn in hell, knock yourself out. Heaven's going to be crowded anyways, and I shouldn't be that way. But I am. I'm not going to go out of my way to save you. But if you need some help, I'll help you. And I think there's a lot of people like me out there, and I should go to church more. But a lot of the reasons I don't go to church is, because I'm lazy and I always don't want to go. But one thing is all the other stuff that goes with church I don't like. I don't like all the hugging crap that wears me out. And there's a lot of people like that. Get talk to you, meet your neighbor and stuff. I know my neighbor. We live in a town of 1,000 people. If I don't hang out with you all the time, what makes you I want to hang out with you just because I go to church with you? Does that make me bad?
I don't necessarily think it makes you bad, but I do think that is cause for some self-reflection because you have to spend forever with them.
It's on me now.
Yeah.
Well, it's all your salvation is on you, Jeff. Sorry.
No, but I think that is a thing that is very common in a lot of people within Christianity. And I find it funny because it's like we're saying that we're going to spend eternity together with all these people, but we don't want to be with them now.
Yeah, you don't want to give them a handshake when you walk in the door.
I got to hang out with all of them?
Every one of them.
I can't have my own little sect over
they're your brothers.
In heaven, I just
brothers.
can't hang out with. So it's just not going to be me go to my house and sit in my recliner in heaven. I've got to interact with these people all the time.
In some way.
Yeah.
Because it's
better than being in hell. I can tell you that, though.
So here's another interesting question to me. Okay, so I want to go to Nietzsche real quick. So do you follow Dr. Peterson at all with what he says? Yeah, Jordan Peterson. Mm-hmm. He says, Nietzsche says that God is dead, but he was not saying it in a celebratory manner. He was saying it in we're in deep shit now because the fact that we have done so many things and we're never going to find our way back to God if we keep going down this path. Is what Dr. Peterson
says that Nietzsche says.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
That's his interpretation of Nietzsche's God is dead. It's not a good thing. It's
it's terrible.
We're in deep doo-doo type of thing. Okay, let me ask you this. How old is the earth? Can we have evolution and Christianity? Because if you look at the biblical timeline, Earth's about 12,000 years old, right?
The young Earth, you take about 6 to 8,000.
Right. But if you look at the dinosaurs and everything else that we've had, it's way older, millions of years older. How do we square the two? Or do we at all?
It's
faith.
It's faith because I don't think to me, it's a non-salvific thing, but it is a fun thought discussion, which I take the earth is young, and that the Genesis account, it was 7 literal days, and that was the start of humanity, because Jesus's lineage traces back to Adam.
How long was a day then though?
One day.
One day, like
So
one of
24
our
hour
days.
is just the same thing.
So did we have dinosaurs millions of years ago?
See, with that stance, we can't have millions of years ago, and so I don't take the evolution stance either that Darwin has put forth, because at the core of evolution, there's so many probabilities that we're just apparently so perfect that we're the only ones in existence, which is nigh impossible to square with how many zeros are at the 1 by the 10 up to the 1, so many powers over and over again.
How long ago was King Tut here?
King Tut?
Civilization. If you look at civilization started about 12,000 years ago. Like if you just, I know young Earth is what, 6 to 8?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go with that timeline of documented civilization being around 8 to 10,000 years ago. King Tut was, I don't know, 3,000 BC.
When was when were the pyramids built?
Whenever whenever Egypt was the national power
How many years
of
ago was
the
that?
world, that would have been 4,000 BC.
Okay, but hold on. Let's
4 to
just go to the. Okay,
So that was 6,000 years ago.
4,000 years ago. This says roughly 2,500 BC.
Well, and it's 4,500 years ago
Right.
is when we had the dinosaurs were here 10,000 years ago.
It depends on
Well, how long ago was the dinosaurs' bones?
According to my math, it's millions of years ago, and I know that can't compute.
Yeah,
Right?
well, look it up and see.
Well, I think it can compute. It just depends on how you take it, because even within Christianity, there is the debate on whether or not the Earth is 6 to 10,000 years old, or if
65 million years ago,
The dinosaurs here were 65 million years ago.
according to this.
And the first man, they just come up with something the other day. They found an Inca girl or something that was a lot older than
So
12,000 years ago.
Right. But that's what I'm trying to get at the bottom of.
Well, look at the Inca girl they just found the other day. They found a girl and she had full clothes and stuff on, and she was in. Did you see that? She was in some kind of flash freeze of some sort. They said she had been.
This says 500 years ago.
That's all it was.
That's all it says.
Let me see.
Inca girl, 500 years old. She was placed at the top of the Andes. Is that the one you're talking about?
that
That was
would've been
killed
it.
in a
That
ritual.
was only 500 years ago.
perfectly
Perfectly. I mean,
preserved.
yes, that's it right there. And she was 500 years. That was 500 years old.
Yep.
Well, never mind then.
So back to the young Earth. I just have a hard time thinking that I can't put everything into the 10,000 years box, if that makes sense. Like I can't get us dinosaurs and extinction of the dinosaurs and then humans rising to the top in that condensed time frame. Is that a me problem?
No, I don't think it's a you problem. I would just happen to disagree with it because I think that you can get these dinosaurs right, because reptiles grow consistently throughout their life. Like they don't stop growing, right? And so
what's your max number on when the Earth was? Is it 8 that like, or are you closer to the 6 or the 8?
I'm probably closer right now to the 6, but that's just me guessing right now. I haven't read enough of the literature on it, but I think going back to it is you have these entities that were living for so long in unmatched peace, because we don't know how long it took before Adam and Eve sinned, right? In the garden. So we don't know that time frame. And then sin enters the world. Now we have death, right? But we still have this growth where there's not a ton of humans per se, anything like that. And then I take the cataclysmic event to be the Noah flood, right? Which is it would wipe off everything else, you know. And so, is it a possibility that the dinosaurs were not on the boat? Because would have been essentially impossible, you know. Bigger boat, whatever. Theoretically, that's all you get into is hypotheticals and theoreticals.
But didn't God say to take everything that's on
Yes.
Earth and to take it by its pairs?
Yes, and so
He didn't
that's
put a size limit on it.
Yeah. And so that's the hard thing square on that, and is if that's what you take the cataclysmic event to be, is the flood. And I mean, I'm just not well versed enough in all of that, just because it's not an area that I've particularly cared to put a ton of interest in my times of study and looking at things. But I don't see the universe as being millions
of years old.
No, because that's going back to Darwin, is Darwin's take that we don't like to talk about kind of going on, is that essentially as you continue to evolve, that, you know, it's the strong survive and the strong progress. And so he would have been like squared okay, like in essence, that technologically advanced humans like Western European American society would have had full rights over underdeveloped nations. So Africa and Asia would have been like fair game for him to go like, yes, they are lesser than us because we are more advanced and more technologically driven. Which I would just have to disagree with that, because I think they're still human, and so they have human dignity.
Right, but there are people that are way behind the times.
Yes.
I mean, they're still humans in the category that, I mean, but I don't see how we could have like Neanderthals. We had Neanderthals, we had cavemen for a long time, and then they invented fire and the wheel, and like it's this linear, it's this progression through human history, and we've only scratched the surface within the last 75 years of what a human can do. Like it's been this hockey stick almost as far as technology has gone. I just don't know how we can have such a condensed timeline of, okay, we're in the garden, we're with God, sin enters the world, then we've got death, and then now all of a sudden we're building the pyramids that is just perfect north, and we're building it to where it's the circumference of the earth if you multiply it by a certain number. I don't think that we could come out of the garden and into building these complex societies just by coming out of a garden, or just by awakening. Like, I don't think we would have
by awakening sin. Right.
I don't think that we would have the technology on how to
agree with that either.
Right.
Because the way historical Jewish literature on kind of that subject, right? So we all take the Christian framework where there's this supernatural God that we get to know and teaches us and works all things for the glory of his good, right? So within that, we also believe that there are angels and demons, and so other supernatural beings, right? And in the Bible, we have the understanding of like the Nephilim, which is angels and humans intermixing, right? And so we've taken these things, and so now we have supernatural interference, or well, interconnectivity.
Interconnection.
Right. And that's the Jewish tradition takes that as angels whenever they are commingling with humans, which was wrong, and God has judged angels for that. Fallen angels don't get a chance to repent, right? And so, but whenever they did that, they showed them
the technology.
They showed them new technology and new ways to advance and do things, and so that's the cultural Jewish take of how we got kind of started.
So angels went bad for humans' benefit, basically. If the angels hadn't ascended. So here's my other question: if God is this all good being and all knowing, what is this all about? Like, he had to have known that Eve was going to tell Adam to have the apple, right? Like, why are we going through this if all God wants is us to worship him? Like, why didn't he just make what he wanted to make the very first time and just be done with it? He's all good and all powerful.
Yeah, that's the question that if anybody could answer it, they would be God.
Right, but I just don't know why. Like, why? I mean, what's the point of it all? Like this, if this is what God wants us to do, and angels are supposed to be his right-hand man, like, how did they go astray? Like, you're supposed to be closer to God than humans are, but now you're doing what God told you not to do. You're intermingling with humans, and now we've got this whole messed up scenario. So that's where I always struggle. Like, what's the point? God should have just done it right the first time. He's God. If I were going to do it, I'd have made humans what I wanted them to be, and then they'd worship me, and we wouldn't have to concern ourselves with hell. Don't eat the apple. I told you not to.
No.
Right?
Right.
So when I want to go back to the young Earth real quick. Light years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are stars that are millions of light years away. We know that. So a light year, if you don't know, it's the distance. It's the time it takes us. Let me see if I can get this right. It is the amount of time it takes a starlight to travel. So 1 million, so a million light years away. If something's 10 light years away, it takes 10 years for the light to go from A to B. So it's more distance than it is time.
When we see a star that burns out in the sky, sometimes that happened 10,000 years ago, they say.
Right. If the Earth is only 6,000 years old, how do we have things that are millions of light years away? It took that light millions of years to travel to my eye.
Mm-hmm.
You will go to one hell of a school to be able to answer all these questions.
Yeah, Texas Tech was not the one.
Because I'm thinking, what? These preachers get asked lots of questions that the average person don't ask. We could be asking a heart guy about heart stuff, but we ain't asking him about everything else.
But I think that's the fun of it, is you get to...
Well, answer this question then.
Yeah, jack of all trades. Well, the answer that Logan is going to put forth is, I don't know, because...
That's fair enough.
There is so much within the heavenly, which sky, space, whatever you want to call it.
Celestial.
The celestial. That's a good word. I'll give you a check mark.
Thank you.
He's going to heaven. He can go gamble now. He got a word right.
For an uneducated,
it'll balance out.
I'm just an uneducated boy from Wichita Falls. Nothing else.
But those are the things. It's like I just don't know how. Like the Earth is only 6,000 years old, but like you can measure the distance of a star being millions of years away. So it took that light millions of years to get here to my eye, but we've only been here for 6,000 years.
I gave the answer earlier.
You don't know.
It's called faith.
There you go.
You have to have faith in the Bible. Michelle tells me that all the time. She says it's faith, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to put faith in God. I mean, it's hard to do, and it's. I believe God gave us brains, and some of us are smarter than others. Some of us are very, very, very smart, and there's some pretty dumb some bitches around here. There's no doubt about it. But He also wants us to use our brain to do things. I mean, open heart surgery. Everything they're doing now. I mean, He wants you to use your brain to do things. And I think sometimes God wants us to question things.
Israel means those who wrestle with God, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does. I didn't know that.
He wrestled with God in a dream. He broke his hip, didn't he?
It was in reality.
Oh, it was in reality? I thought he was in a dream state.
No, I'm pretty sure it was in, like, he was conscious that he was wrestling with, he just thought it was some dude.
What was his name? It was Jacob first, wasn't it?
Jacob.
And then he
Because
wrestled with
Jacob means
God.
deceiver.
And then he became...
And then God touches his hip and says, your new name is Israel.
Right. He beat God in that wrestling match too, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. He was winning. And then God was like, nah, no longer have your hip in the socket. You know? He's like, go pick up a cane.
But God wants us to do that. Just like, don't you enjoy someone that makes you think?
Yes.
And I mean, I love to debate, and I want you to think. And if you can, I like to learn from that way and be educated. So I think God wants us to question some things.
I think He does too. I think that the book of Job really shows that. Is, Job is the one that is righteous in God's eyes, and Satan walks up to God and goes, I bet I can get Job to forsake you. And so then all the things happen, lose his family, lose kids, lose property, lose everything, covered in boils. His friends, quote unquote, come to comfort him, but their discussions are, Job, you're terrible. Job, you're wrong. And Job's going like, no, I'm not. And then they get into this idea of what would God do? What is God doing? What can God do? Just blaspheme him, just blaspheme him, just blaspheme him. And then God answers at the end and says, who are you, O man? He goes, I'm God. How can you comprehend my ways? He's not denigrating him to the point of going like, why are you questioning me? He's going, why are you trying to tell me how I should be in your eyes, And so we should question these things, and we should. I think it's part of being human and why we are very intellectual beings that have to communicate with one another.
That's a very interesting thought. You're an interesting story. You come from you have two brothers.
Mm-hmm.
You have two brothers, and y'all are all different type brothers. One's a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
What's your middle brother do?
He's basically like a consultant / for kind of like veterinary clinics down outside of Austin.
And then you're going to be a preacher, and your dad drives a
18-wheeler.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting guy. Your dad's very. I talked to your dad quite a bit, and you come from a good family. You're raised in a cowboy church,
I was raised in a Baptist church, but we go to a cowboy church now out of Wichita.
and you're at a big high dollar church in Dallas now.
I'm at a
High dollar church.
It is pretty high dollar, but yeah,
Well, it's in
a
North
little-
Richland Hills, isn't it?
No, it's in Highland Park.
Highland Park.
He's got celebrities that sing in their choir there that he didn't know who
that's
they
what he
were.
said. Yeah, your dad was like, you need to do a little bit of homework before.
Yeah.
Yeah, my age really shows there. Whenever I walk in, I'm like, oh, next to me, the next youngest are the children, and then like, oh, look, the 50-year-olds.
Right.
But
So Jeff and I have had this discussion a lot. I think Christianity. How long? Okay, let me give you my thoughts first. I think that if America stays on its path, Christianity is going to be a thing of the past within 75 years. I think that a cataclysmic event, a Great Depression, I think that a lot of people will quit believing in themselves so much and probably turn back to the church. What are your thoughts on that?
Bad times create lots of Christians.
A lot of faith being spread around in difficult times. But I just think that we've had such this easy ride since the Great Depression, since World War II. It's been pretty much a cakewalk for a lot of people. And we have started relying on ourselves more. We've got all the answers. We don't need God necessarily as much anymore. I'm guilty of it. I mean,
You think we rely on ourselves too much
Listen
now?
to some of the dumb questions that I've had today. But I think that if America continues this trajectory of peace and prosperity, Christianity is going to go by the wayside rapidly.
I agree. Timeline wise, I don't know if it'll be 75 years or it'll be quicker. That's all. That's semantics.
That's speculative. Yeah.
Speculative semantics. But I do agree.
How about within 3 generations?
Okay. So within 3 generations, you think that there will be an event, will downslide, and Christianity will get shoved to the wayside.
Yes, I think within, what year is it now? 2022. I think by
the turn of the century.
By the turn of the century, I think Christianity will be something that is either we've gone back to the way things were, Depression era, World War II era, or we've continued this upward climb as a civilization and people don't go to church anymore.
But the Muslims will be more and more of them because they're taking over.
They live in squalors, Jeff.
But their religion is growing like crazy nationwide.
Yeah, kill or convert.
Yep. I wonder.
It's amazing what you can get people to do when you put a knife to their throat.
I wonder if they
is that fair? Is that fair for me to think, or am I exaggerating things?
No, I agree with you. I think it is a very fair assertion that the church has not done. I think the church has struggled to comprehend its mission for the past few generations, and I think that'll only get worse with how much, especially just you think about my lifetime, so 2000s, like that's it. 01, baby, putting my age out there. I'm a child.
Yeah. Were you born before 9/11?
Yeah, 6 months.
Oh, okay. Isn't that crazy to think, Jeff?
Mm-hmm.
So you think about how much has occurred in my lifetime from whenever y'all were.
The worst part of my lifetime, in the best time of my lifetime, not talking about my family and my personal achievements or goals or any of that stuff, but just overall,
but the stuff
the world that we
the
live
world has
in,
gone through and lived through, and where we've supposedly, I do find it ironic that like progressives are the ones that go, we need to be more, more transgenders, more like pedophilia should be okay again. I find that incredibly ironic because really they're the ones trying to conserve that old Greco-Roman imperial mindset versus you look at what society was like under Christianity, under Catholicism in essence. And, that's mostly political fights and science was suppressed and all the bad that came with it. But like society was structured and there was order and people could look to each other and you trusted all of your neighbors. I mean, just kind of regardless, more or less, don't want to blanket that, but you had a higher sense of community. You had a higher, there was this transcendence. And now that we've kind of progressed and just as humanity, we've progressed to the point where we go, well, like what transcendence do we need if we're turning to ourselves and we're not turning to an external God, to the Judeo-Christian God. And so what do we look like next? I think he'll continue to get shoved out of the wayside. And I really do believe that within my lifetime, the church will probably look a lot more like the early church did, meeting in houses, than it does now being able to meet in buildings or like cathedrals.
Well, I don't know how any of that's sustainable either. Like if you look at church attendance, it's way down. I'm sure tithes are way down. I mean, I don't know how some of these these big churches continue to keep the doors open just from a logistics standpoint of how do we pay our bills without people coming in the doors.
And that is incredible. We were talking in school about 2 months ago. That probably within the next 20. So we were talking about, we have the discussion, should we plant more churches or should we build churches kind of up, like more remodeling per se, so we have more space. And there are multiple, there are the two trains of thought, and I prefer planting, and so that's my bias. But
what do you mean by that? Planting?
I think we should plant more churches and not
have them.
I think we should have more churches and not just like better looking ones. That's my
So you're going by
opinion.
the numbers. If we have more availability,
I think you have more availability, and like the concept of a church plan is that you're going into this neighborhood that probably doesn't have a church, and you're going into a place that nobody else wants to be in. And so for me, it's like, okay, I live in Dallas. It's like we should be planning in Oak Cliff or Oak Lawn, the largest neighborhood in the United States, right? One of Gayborhood.
Gayborhood. I've never heard it called that, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
There's more gay people there than outside of San Francisco.
Yes. But you send a church, most churches don't want to touch that because we don't know how to interact socially with people that disagree with us in a lot of ways. I think at large, the churches struggle with that. And so you have to go into these places where you don't really want to go in order to convert and save souls for the gospel through the proclamation of Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior.
right?
Right. And
It's easy to go into a neighborhood or a town where people mostly align with your beliefs.
it's
and
easy to
have
go into
people
a
there.
place that looks the exact same as you and is going to have a stable income.
Right?
But see, that's the deal. You preach that you're going to hell if you're homosexual, but then you're going to go to a gay neighborhood to build a church.
Yeah.
Do you not think the church is either giving in too much trying to get their attendance up, or
I don't think that.
No, I don't think it's an attendance thing. I think if I'm probably not the person to do that, but I do think that there are people that are gifted at giving gospel presentations to people that are homosexual.
See, I don't know how
to convert them.
I don't know how you convert someone homo. I don't understand why a gay man wants to be a gay man anyways. I don't get that. But I don't understand if you're gay, what's going to make you all of a sudden think you want a woman. I don't.
You have to show
Well,
them.
I don't think it necessarily has to go like that. You would want a woman, but
You
you
just
have to
don't want a man.
recognize that your urges are sinful and that there's a holier, higher way. That's
become a Catholic
beyond.
priest.
Yeah, no. Then you get kids.
What and then like how is that still a thing? Like how has the Catholic Church not just been totally done away with? Like with the amount of pedophilia evidence
Money.
that has come out, and I mean just the whole corrupt organization of the Catholic Church. And if you don't believe me, go do a quick Google search on priests with boys.
Money.
There's several. I think it's
How
called
is this not
Spotlight.
just
there's
blown
a
up?
movie about it.
Do what?
I think there's a movie. I think it's called
Yes, it's called
Spotlight.
Spotlight. Yeah.
Yes, that is a good thing to watch to recognize that.
It's money.
and they
It's
would
money.
they would shuffle priests around. If you had too many occurrences in South Boston, they would send you to Philadelphia, and if you did it in Philadelphia, they'd send you to Akron. If you did it in Akron, they'd finally send you to Kansas.
Okay. Why did Jeffrey Epstein get by with all his shit? Money and power. The Catholic Church has untold billions of dollars. There's no telling what they're worth.
But why don't people see what has money has nothing to do with it? I don't have to have a bunch of money to tell you that
You're a good person, but
what Epstein did was terrible. But I also don't have to have a whole lot of money to tell you that the Catholic Church is a corrupt organization.
They don't talk about it.
But it's out there. The information's out there.
Hold on. We got a Catholic that works this. How long did he? What made him realize all that?
I was talking about it.
Yeah, and he used to get defensive about it, right?
Very defensive.
Yeah, and now he don't no more. But they don't talk about it at their church. And you're right. But do you see the mainstream media talk about it? Not much.
Well, then you just look at how is essentially you look at the amount of corruption in the Catholic Church. How is like any government still in existence?
They're
too?
all
that's true
It's
too.
all the
that's a very
all
good
the
point.
same.
It's all the same shit.
If you own the media and you control the narrative, you can control what's going on. I mean, how did Hitler get in power?
He was good at what he did.
He was, and he was in. But they have sold it. How much money? The only people that may have more riches than the Catholic Church may be the royal family.
I want to preface what I said about Hitler. Hitler was a good leader for Germany after World War One.
You didn't say it wrong.
Okay, I just don't want. I've already done the rape thing and all this stuff. Like I don't want to. I don't want to be the pro Hitler guy all of a sudden.
Who is it that said that?
Kanye.
And we
just
talked,
came out.
We talked about this scouting one day, and there are things that Hitler did that was good. 99% of the shit he did was bad, but there is some 1%. But you can say that about say that about a lot of people. I mean,
everything he did in World War II was bad. He built Germany up after World War One.
Yes,
I mean they became a superpower under the stuff that he did. So in that narrow box, Hitler was a good leader. Now you can sound clip it or whatever, but it's
No.
I'm not saying
I'm
after
agreeing.
World War One and before what he did in the Holocaust.
I'm with you on
getting
this one.
people into World War II.
The good rape, I'm not.
I just want to be very clear because like I've already got. I can feel my DMs.
Can you send that sound clip to me? I want it to be my new text.
Right, yeah, Hitler was a good leader.
The good rape shit, not with you on. But
Yeah, right,
But
right.
Hitler, there was some things he did, but you can come up with Genghis Khan. You can come up with every Mussolini ever did something that probably was good. They did some good, I'm sure, but their bad just outweighed it all. I mean,
what they all did is they didn't have anybody that could tell them that this is a bad road to go down because they would just execute them.
That's exactly right. But they controlled the narrative. Hitler controlled the media over there and the propaganda, and those people. I mean, hell, he was giving them methamphetamines. They were staying up for 4 days fighting. They couldn't understand why. That was one of the biggest problems. Why where do these soldiers get this much energy? Well, it's called meth.
Right.
I mean, but that's why the Catholic Church has gotten by with this stuff for years.
I've never put the two together, but you're exactly right. Like, why is America still a thing? We know about all the corruption that goes on in Washington, D.C. We know that we know that we're trillions of dollars in debt. Like, why has there not just been this massive overthrow? It's because we keep people comfortable enough.
Yep.
They're comfortable just enough not to go storm Washington.
Right.
That's why.
That's exactly right.
Well, we have. I think we also have this false picture of what our government could look like of having only two parties, and everybody wants to
100%.
fit in that, and that's just not accurate at all. I think
It's the worst.
You can pull it up in the magic laptop over there, but
Yeah.
how many people each representative is supposed to have? Each member of the House is supposed to represent constitutionally. So if you look it up and you look at, okay, we have 435 members right now, 535 between the joint session, but it's that those are basically numbers that haven't been updated in a long time.
So you think we should have 1,000
More
representatives?
representation.
It's if you get more representation, you kind of have to force it.
Says that law no more than 435.
So that's
Wow.
the law.
So they encoded that in
The
law.
number of voting representatives in the House is fixed by at law no more than 435 proportionately.
So as the government grows, you take 300
You're
million
supposed to
people and
I gotta pee.
divide it by 435, and that's what you come up
Yeah,
with.
so that's how you get it. But I think there's a number that's not the one that is interesting that it's enshrined in the law. But there's another law that you're only supposed to represent X amount, and we're not even near that.
Well, you couldn't do that because if that was written in the
because
Constitution,
it get clogged down and
it's
nothing would get accomplished.
we'd have 10,000 representatives up there.
Yeah, that's basically what the number. It comes down to almost like 9,000 representatives, but so you get bogged down in that. But it's all. I think the point that it clarifies it, or that I see in that is that we're not represented by people that are our people. You know, our representatives aren't ours, and they're feeding themselves. They're corrupt, all the things, but these people that feel that they don't have a voice are never going to have a voice for right or wrong. You know, even if I think they're stupid, you know, they should still have a representative that represents them.
They're represented by the lobbyists and the corporations that pay those lobbyists. That's who they represent. They don't represent us.
No.
I'm going to tell you something. One of the things that hurts me the most in probably in the last probably 10 to 15 years, when I really, really realized how corrupt our government is. And you know, like John F. Kennedy. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, I wasn't born. I was born 5 years after John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And really, you just talked about John F. Kennedy. You hear about him, you learned about him in school, but you really didn't learn much. And then as you get older, you realize that our own government is the one that assassinated him. You know, we were balls deep in all of that stuff.
Or we allowed it to happen. I don't know that.
And then the FBI and the CIA. You know, I was always grew up as, man, the FBI's there in case something bad happens. FBI comes in, they solve things. Well, they're corrupt also. They're all owned by the same, but the same people run the media. They run everything, and that's what's depressing is I've gotten, and I just don't give a shit no more about our politics. I don't, because it doesn't matter. They've already figured out what they're going to do. I mean, Brittany Griner deal. We traded
A weapons dealer.
The same party
That preaches gun control.
Preaches gun control. Just let go the biggest murderer in the world when it comes to selling guns to kill people.
He's trying to get involved in. He's trying to sell to Russia for this Ukraine deal.
Yeah, he's already back in business now. And what would we do? We traded a black lesbian basketball player. Now, I don't care if she's white, black, or brown. I don't care if she played basketball or football. If it was Tom Brady, I would say bullshit. You don't make that trade. It's ridiculous.
Or make a better trade. Get the Marine.
Well, I wouldn't even have traded him for that guy. I don't even know why the Marine's locked up.
Espionage.
But espionage. Well,
Which means he was over there working for the United States government and got caught.
And he should be getting out. But there's a reason why that he's been there that long, because they could have made this trade a long time ago. Trump could have made this trade a long time ago. For him, not for her. But it's bullshit. But as I get older and older, I see the corruption, and I just don't give a shit no more. My Congressman Ronnie Jackson, what has he done besides get on Twitter and bitch about Donald Trump about Biden every day? Has he went to the floor one time and made a big proposal that, hey, we need term limits or we need this? No, nothing. They all talk. That's all they do.
Well, they don't want to do anything.
Fuck no, they don't. That's the Republican senators wanted Warnock to win in Georgia because if they win in Georgia, then we don't have to do nothing.
We don't have to do anything.
We have an
for
excuse
2 years
because the Cinnamon lady at Arizona, she's come out now. She's going to be an independent,
which is okay. She's still a Democrat.
Basically, she's going to caucus with the Democrats, but she's come out. But she did vote against them 7% of the time. And then you've got Peckerhead in West Virginia, Manchin. He votes with the Democrats
99% of the time.
Well, probably less than that, but pretty close. Lives on a yacht in the Potomac River. You know, he lives on a yacht. That's where his house is right there. Yeah, he's right there doing their best for the state of. They don't give a shit about us, and it's just the same thing goes on all the time. And so they control the media, they control the narrative, and that's why they hate this Twitter deal, because all of a sudden, whoa, people are getting to actually read what's going on, and they don't like it. I'm telling you right now, Elon Musk, if he sees 2024, I'll be shocked.
I think the people like Elon Musk too much.
I think Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein people turn on people. You know, that was pretty hard to back. But Elon, I think he's going to have the people on his side.
He does have the people on his side.
Epstein just had money.
But Elon Musk has really made mad. Did you see his deal yesterday? My pronouns are prosecute Fauci.
Yeah.
Boy, they are raising hell about that. Okay, there's a man right there. We all know how crooked Fauci is, but he still walks and drives because the media comes out, oh, he's a hero. Well, who thinks the media is right on that stuff? I mean, it's
uneducated idiots.
Yeah, every one of them.
But that's just the reality we live in. Is who owns the media is the U.S. government. Even if we don't want to talk about it, that's what it is. And who educates our children? The U.S. government.
Yep.
Who does everything for us? The U.S. government.
Yeah, they're indoctrinating everybody. The best time to live in this country was 10 years before I was born, the mid-50s. Andy disagrees with me all the time on that.
I think that the amenities now are too great. I mean, we've talked about this before, like a middle income.
Our lifestyle's different.
A middle income family now lives better than the Rockefellers did in the 1920s.
But the nuclear family is what I'm talking about.
Well, it's all the actual traditional human values that propelled America to be where it is today.
Yes.
We're still enacted and empowered, and people appreciate
hard work,
Yes.
strong family values, and raise productive members of society because we're in it for the long haul. Yes, you are 100% right. The 50s were the golden age for that.
When I was a kid,
unless you were black, and then we still had our own.
They
still had a lot of things. But we had to overcome.
That's the discrepancies on incomes was different with the blacks and whites, but the blacks had a better family values in the 50s.
Well, everybody did.
But
it was across the board.
Theirs was huge. We looked it up the other day. It's flipped. Back then, 25% of all black kids.
I think it was 30 and 70.
30,
and now it's 70 and 30.
We're all born with a mom and dad in the house. Now, only 3 out of 10 kids are born with that.
That in place.
It's just a completely different deal. Well, that's what I was getting at on that part. But we need to get back to what it is. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but when I was a kid,
it's going to take something major.
When I was
mean,
a
it goes back
kid-
to what I was saying.
When I was a kid, Christmas was a family holiday. We got gifts. There was no doubt about it. You had a stocking. A stocking then had an orange in it, a candy cane, maybe some lifesavers, some nuts. I mean, it was very simple stuff. You got a big gift maybe, and you got some clothes and crap. You know that stuff, practical gifts. You know, we don't do that no more. Christmas is one up the people down the street shit all the time, and we've gotten so far away what Christmas was about, and it's our whole world is just about what Christmas is like now.
Can I ask you about Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did my voice crack? If that was picked up.
There's no reference of Jesus' birthday being December 25th, correct?
Correct.
There's also a lot of strong evidence that the animals were outside of the stable, which would indicate like a spring or summer birth. So was Christmas used to convert pagans to Christianity a long time ago? Because if you look at paganism, they were deathly afraid. The days are getting shorter. Shortest day of the year is December 21st every year. About 5 days after that, they can notice, you can tell the days are getting longer. So the pagans had this celebration around December 25th, December 26th. Right. Early Christians, hypothetically, use that to, hey, we've got our own winter solstice, sun's coming back, we're all going to live because we can grow stuff again. Is there any merit to that? I mean, because like there's nothing in the Bible that says anything about Christmas, the holiday.
I think there is a ton of merit to it because I definitely lean towards a spring summer birth for
you do
for yes.
But based on what, just the animals being out of the stable?
Well, animals in stable, and then you look at, for me, I think there's a lot of connections. So like, you know how Jesus is called our Passover lamb, right?
Yes.
So lambs born in the spring,
right?
Spring summer.
Yep.
So that all that stuff to me that makes the most sense. I mean, Bethlehem is where they got basically the lambs to slaughter in Jerusalem. And so it's like all these things match up for it to be a very similar thing for Jesus to fulfill all these metaphors while also fulfilling prophecy. And so it's why I lean that way. But yes, like Christmas was a pagan holiday and we more or less appropriated it as Christians to go like, yeah, we can celebrate this and
maybe convert some pagans.
Maybe convert some pagans and kind of give this like a redemptive thing, kind of like, so your days are getting longer. So it's like, look, we're pointing to a new life.
Right.
We're pointing to something new happening way back then, even if it wasn't entirely temporally accurate on the timeline.
Right. So it's kind of propaganda a little bit.
It's a little bit, you know,
a little bit of finagling the truth.
It is a little bit of a finagling the truth, but
it's still like Christmas can still be a time where you reflect and, you know, this is the beginning of a new, it's the beginning of a new year. And then we can, there's a lot of good that can come from Christmas.
You definitely get that. I think we do. That is a good job that kind of comes with that whole Advent kind of 4-ish weeks, you know, right after Thanksgiving, that Sunday until Christmas is, you're reflecting on perhaps one of the, like to me, it's the beginning of one of the greatest paradoxes of human history is the spirit God came down from a virgin in the form of a man as a baby and was birthed. And like, there's no way, like we can say that and get what that means, but we can't really comprehend what it means for the almighty creator of the entire universe to come down as a baby.
Right.
And that looks like us and, you know, had all the things and like grew up and had a regular childhood and like was a teenager and did the things like that's nigh impossible for us to really comprehend like that's God. And so it is a good time to sit and reflect and go like, yeah, we really don't know anything, do we?
Right. It is a crazy scenario. Like you got God the Father and then God comes down and becomes man. So during that time that Jesus walked on earth, there was not God in heaven?
Yes.
He was still in heaven? What about the Holy Spirit? Where's he
also still in heaven at that time, but also with Jesus.
But they're all the same thing, right? Jesus is God in the flesh.
Yes.
But there was still
God in heaven.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the Holy Spirit is also God.
Is also God, also in heaven and dwelling with Christ.
Okay.
Yes. So then, because
I mean, y'all wonder why people are scared to death of being a Christian. They're so confused.
What's
yeah,
I mean,
the Trinity is a very complex
issue.
thing to like try and like logically think through again.
So
I think Michelle's faith statement really stands out right there.
So when Jesus was on the cross and said, "God, why have you forsaken me?" He was talking to himself, obviously, but he was there was God in heaven for him to talk to.
Yes, and there was also God, the Holy Spirit, dwelling within him, because in that is there's a so like if you start singing song lyrics, that other people will start singing them and like know what song you're singing.
Right.
So if you pull up Psalm 22, that's what those words are going back to Psalm 22. And so Jesus says that in relationship to that entire psalm, which is going through, you my God, why are you forsaking me? But then it's got this big redemptive, like you were there, we're there, everything's gonna be good. And so it harkens back to that. But yes, and I think a better picture per se is to look at the baptism. Is whenever Jesus gets baptized, the heaven opens, the Spirit descends like a dove, and God speaks that this is my Son, whom I well pleased,
Right.
My beloved. And so it's basically impossible to truly grasp anything to deal with God, but especially like the Trinity is a very impressive thing to think and work through.
It's tough. There's a lot of stuff that you got to think through. You ready to go eat? It's 12:30. We've kept you in here long enough.
Oh, you're good. I got nothing but time.
Yeah, we need to go eat though, because if not, Michelle's gonna pick that kitchen up, and then you're gonna get out. And
You're
then
going to be
we're gonna get in
starving.
trouble.
Listen, this has been a lot of fun. I've
Very
enjoyed
entertaining,
picking your
very
brain.
educational.
You've done. You've answered everything. Like you've had an answer for everything.
You're gonna be a good.
Even I don't know. I appreciate that.
You're gonna be a good preacher.
You will be.
Thank you.
You will, because you're gonna be easy to talk to for people.
I think that's what people want more than anything. Is just somebody that they can. I would always feel like if I pose some of these questions to a lot of people, they'd be like, "The fuck are you asking me this dumb stuff for? Like, you're a shitty Christian if you think this way." So you've done well. You're gonna do well. You're gonna do a lot of great things. So I appreciate you letting us pick your brain about some of these things. Some of the Bible's not easy to get through. So I mean, the fact that you had any answers for anything speaks volumes.
And just for the record, me and you both thought the good rape was bad. Just
it
as
was
mean.
a bad analogy.
Like that's how we started.
Yes.
Right.
We've
We
come
worked-
a long way.
We worked our way through it,
Yes.
didn't we? I
But
feel
just
like
for the
we
record,
did.
me and you were opposite of that. So
It's okay. Hitler's still a good leader.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just go read a history book. I don't know what to tell you. All right. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, go check out all of our great sponsors. Go set up a Hunt-Proof app account. Check out the Looking Glass Podcast, Lucky Duck, Alpha Outdoor Specialties, Bangtail Whiskey, Stanfield Hunting Outfitters, Dirty Duck Coffee, Ducks Unlimited, Double T British Kennels, Lucky Duck, Shin Gear Waders, Gundog Outdoors, Pacific Calls, Dive Bomb Industries, Boss Shot Shells, and Mossberg.